Hi everyone, welcome to my video talking about Trag'Oul's Necromancer set and how it could be reworked to make it cool and interesting and powerful again. So as we have seen in the last seasons, Blizzard has been trying to either introduce new sets or rework some of the oldest, most forgotten, most useless ones that don't really serve a purpose anymore in the game. We've seen this with Firebird, with Inner Monk, with a bunch of other things. And I think that Trag'Oul is definitely one of those next in line because of how bad it is, and it also just doesn't have any very interesting mechanics that would differentiate it gameplay wise from other sets with similar abilities. The way that Trag'Oul is played these days is typically with Corpse Explosion, so you have these Corpse Spiders, Final Embrace, so it's kind of like a ranged Corpse Explosion playstyle, which is like the only novelty that this brings. But Corpse Explosion is already so dominant on Necromancer in general, especially with the poison runes for LOD. It's like the best Necromancer build. And then there's also Inario's Corpse Explosion, and you don't need to have yet another Corpse Explosion build. But there is one skill in the game that is extremely forgotten, which is Death Nova. So Death Nova is typically only a spell that is used for leveling 1 to 70, and afterwards that's about it, and you only use it if you actually get it blood type late. So what I'm saying is this is not exactly a skill right now, and I believe that there could be a really cool combination between the Trag'Oul set and a Blood Nova build to make this skill more awesome and more rewarding to play. So this is what the skill looks like. It's like a big explosions all around you. You can also have simulacrums up, so they cast them as well because it's a secondary skill. And then there is this Trag'Oul's set theme that revolves a lot around like life management, blood and leeching life, spending life, these kind of things. And I believe there could be some really awesome stuff. Not only is the damage multiplier hilariously low on the set, but it also doesn't actually provide any defense. The 4-piece bonus that typically provides damage reduction does not provide any in this case. Instead, it just allows you to increase your maximum life to a higher value. I believe this mechanic has definitely proven to be absolutely pointless, because if you still die one shot to everything, you don't need to have more life. And also you need to actually heal up more to even benefit from this. So compared to other builds, your recovery is essentially halved. In addition to this, there are some very interesting and special Necromancer legendary effects that are pretty much completely unused. One of them being Lornell's Sunstone, that allows you to get a lot of damage reduction when you're at low life. And I want to have a natural synergy with this ring. First of all, because I think the concept of it is really cool. And second, because I believe that with a Trag'Oul set that has this kind of life up and down interaction, this might be a really cool fit. And secondly, since there is natural synergy between Blood Nova and the Iron Rose, and all that is supposed to go with this Trag'Oul set that I have in mind, I also want to give Siphon Blood some love, because this generator is generally really useless. There is the Grim Scythe, which especially has the Cursed Scythe rune. This is used in almost every single case when you need a generator because of the extra curses that you get for free, typically even combined with the Trag'Oul Scythe. And Bone Spikes and Siphon Blood are both extremely niche and basically not useful. So I want to give Siphon Blood a prominent role in this setup, and I also want to make the connected legendary, the Funerary Pick, an item worth using. So I've been discussing some ideas on my stream lately, but I had this idea in mind for a long time to make like a kind of like health management Blood Nova kind of build out of Trag'Oul's. So I wrote down some ideas earlier and I want to share them with you. So without further ado, here's my rework concept. So in order to make this work the way I imagine it, you don't actually need to change or add a lot of new items for this, as long as the set is changed in a way like this. The only item I would like to change is the Funerary Pick, as I just explained, because right now it sucks and it basically has no purpose whatsoever. But I believe it could go really well with this whole setup. So we start out with the 2-piece bonus. Blood Rush and Siphon Blood gain the effect of a rune. This is very similar to what it does right now. Here it's just Blood Rush, which removes the cost and it gives you the double charges and leaves a corpse and stuff like that. So little nice effects that are good to have. And this kind of goes well with the theme of the set. For Siphon Blood, this is a bit more specific. So Siphon Blood gives you essence when it deals damage, and it also heals you every second while channeling. But there is a rune that gives you no more essence, but increases the life restored to 6%. But there's also a rune that increases the essence gained to a higher value while at full health. So in this case, you would have to make some kind of like special interaction between them, where essentially you don't gain essence at all until you reach full life, but then you gain a lot of essence. So this is the idea here. Apart from this, the other runes are kind of whatever anyway. So there's the extra damage, but Siphon Blood is not supposed to be like an actual damage spell here. There's slow, which is kind of nice, I suppose, and there's also pull in health globes, which is also a nice little bonus. So next up for the 4-piece bonus. So first of all, we have to give this Necromancer set some damage reduction, because the way it works right now, it is absolutely a glass cannon that is like unplayable. And in order for this like health management kind of playstyle to work, you need to be able to actually take some hits while at low life. So one of these mechanics is the Lonel Sunstone, but the Lonel Sunstone doesn't help you when you're full HP, so that if you are very squishy and you have Lonel Sunstone as kind of your main defensive mechanic, you will essentially just die in one shot anyway. So you need to have some base damage reduction. So I gave it a juicy 75% after spending life on any skill. So here the idea is that you use the Blood Nova to actually proc this effect, because Blood Nova actually costs life, and you want to cast it at least sometimes manually and not only channel. Also, I gave this 4-piece bonus some other effects to make this health management kind of playstyle doable. So the idea is that you kind of go up and down with your life voluntarily, both to increase your damage and increase your damage reduction. I also gave this 4-piece bonus life spent on skills is doubled. So the idea here is that you can voluntarily choose to go to low life whenever you wish really quickly, so that you can then also heal up again and gain some other bonuses that you will see in a second. So basically you spend 10% life, this gets doubled to 20. So when you use this, you can go to low life in just a matter of a few casts, and you will have the protection from the Lonel Sunstone and the other special ability from the 4-piece set that reduces your life recovery besides Siphon Blood by the same amount that Lonel Sunstone does. So the idea is that you basically cannot heal, but you also barely take any damage while at low life. But then you have the option to quickly recover all your life in a matter of a few seconds by using Siphon Blood, which gives you 6% healing per second per enemy drained, so that when you have the Funerary Pick, you have 3 targets for 18% life regeneration per second. So in 5 or 6 seconds you're gonna be full. I think that without such a life recovery reduction mechanic, we would have issues actually staying at low life when we want to stay at low life, and keeping up this damage reduction, and also setting up the nuke that you'll see here in the 6-piece bonus. So like this, you can choose to stay at low life, and you can choose to go back to full life whenever you want. Obviously, you can't just let your health drop lower and lower, because eventually you will die. But the idea is that this is rather tanky, and especially with Lonel Sunstone giving you up to 95% damage reduction at low life, you're gonna be quite a tank, even when you're just at 5% life left. And finally, we have the 6-piece bonus. So first of all, give a juicy damage multiplier to Blood Nova by default. So the idea is that you don't always want, or maybe you can't always play around this health mechanic, so that you have some damage by default, but then you can improve it by doing this kind of health up and down playstyle. So here we have extra damage for recovering life in the last 10 seconds or whatever number, and then this increases this bonus by another, let's say 200%, up to 20,000%. The exact numbers here are just placeholders, so this definitely should be tweaked to make it feel good. But the idea is that, for example, while farming and you're just like speed running with this, you just run around, you don't really care much about, you know, going low life, going high life all the time. You just blast down whatever you find. And then you have like kind of this push play style where you can set up those really chunky nukes by going to low life first, spending your life casting Blood Nova, and then you heal back up, and while doing that you activate the Iron Rose while siphoning blood and get back to full life, and this gives you another further damage boost, something like ×2 or ×3 of the regular damage. So I kept this here 20,000, which is essentially ×3 of this regular damage. It could also be fine if it's like capped at ×2 or so, but essentially I just wanted to give a good enough incentive to actually engage with the set's mechanic. And lastly, we have the rework for the Funerary Pick. So I kind of like the idea of siphoning blood from additional targets, so this can just stay as it is. This is the current text of the item, but that's it. And I want to add this line here. So this one says that each second of draining from enemies affected by Leech increases the damage taken from your blood nova by 100%, stacking up to 20 times. So the idea is that this is an extremely powerful single target or kind of multi-target effect, similar to like Shield of Fury, for example, from the Crusader, where you can kind of like stack up more damage over time. The main weakness that any Nova build has is that you have Blood-Tied Blade, which is by far one of the best damage multipliers in the game for any skill, but it only works when you have massive amounts of density, and you have essentially 0 single target damage. While Siphon Blood, on the other hand, is essentially kind of like a single target skill that you can use to stack up this damage buff, and then produce some interesting playstyle where you try to siphon from, you know, those yellow elites and especially the boss, and now you actually have the chance to kill them in less than 20 minutes. So the way that Nova builds are played these days is typically that you save at least 1 or 2 pylons for the boss, and then you press them with Nemesis Bracer, and hopefully you get an Illusionist pack or a second one even, and on top of that maybe you even spawn Hamelin, and then maybe you can kill the boss, and that's about it. So there is absolutely 0 single target damage on this, and I think a mechanic like this Funerary Pick here would allow you to alleviate this problem a little bit. Potentially this would actually lead to really fast boss kills when you have ads, but I don't really see this as an issue. Boss kills in general are way too long in Diablo 3 when you're pushing, and it's just way too boring. And yeah, let them have some really juicy single target nukes sometimes when there's other enemies around, I would say. Interesting part about this effect is also that you could potentially even stack this up while waiting for a convention cycle, or, you know, just making a pull. You just sometimes drain here and there to kind of like stack up this damage buff on a few targets in a very large pull, which you might then proc area damage off from and actually annihilate the entire pull at the same time as well. Not really such a big deal, because typically you just annihilate large density anyway due to the Blood-Tied Blade, but it would definitely also help out with those smaller sized pulls where you don't have 100 enemies. Instead you can just siphon blood a little bit and kind of deal good damage through area damage at the same time. So here I made like a mock-up of such a potential build and how that would look like and how that would play. I've just explained a little bit with the up and down mechanics. I also gave some love to the Leech curse here because I feel it's a pretty cool curse, and unfortunately it's completely underused, so I would just like include that in the build. And I think it also goes really well with this whole Siphon Blood mechanic. So you can just kind of like use the Leech curse here, then you have your Simulacrums with Horn of Visions because they also cast your Novas, and you have the Iron Rose, Funerary Pick and a Blood-Tied Blade as your main damage multipliers together with the set. And then there is basically no cooldown reduction required. You have nukes whenever you want. The good part is that you are rather mobile because of the Blood Rush, and then you have these rather strong damage reduction mechanics like Dainties in here. You can even put in something like a Stewart's Grease for speed farming, and maybe a killer for pushing or so if you want even more toughness. So there's definitely some nice mechanics involved that are already there on the Necromancer class. And obviously the Lionel Sunstone, as I had explained earlier. And that concludes the video, so hope you liked my idea. I believe Necromancer could definitely deserve some love in the upcoming patches, because Necromancers are not exactly popular right now, besides rats as always. And especially some of their sets like the Trag'Ouls are extremely outdated and have absolutely no reason to exist because LOD exists. So I think that even though it takes away from the flexibility that Trag'Oul has, it is so niche and so unused that there's no reason to have that flexibility, and making a dedicated Nova set would actually give another tool, another toy for Necromancers to play with, and could be potentially pretty amazing if some of those most important issues like the missing single target damage are fixed. So this is one way of doing it. I hope that you enjoyed my concept. Let me know if you have some other cool ideas for Trag'Ouls or what you would like to add for this. Maybe there are some things that are completely missed here in my concept, or maybe you have some other set ideas for other classes. So let me know. Maybe the devs will listen and do some cool stuff with it in the future, but I also wanted to chime in here, and let's see what happens. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.